Yeah, so you know what the future roast would look like. So make sure you don't have one.
Oh man! You have to put a time limit on that thing, cause boy.
Oh man. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe that through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journeys through this thing we call life. Welcome to season 3. We are super, super excited to be back with you all. We have a couple of surprises in store for you all this season, and can't wait to see what your feedback is once those surprises occur. But as far as today's episode go, you can see we are a man down. Brother B is out today. He will be back with us in our next episode. And also, real quick, want to shout out Brother Rod off air. We were just having a quick conversation as he celebrated his birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to him. And on today's episode, our topic is the importance of your inner circle. And as what has become customary, we're going to have Brother Ray kick us off.
All right, I'll make this real quick and easy to open up. But for me, my inner circle is essential. It's extremely tight knit, but that's on purpose. I know when I was growing up, I felt like the more people that I had in my life, the better. But as I got older, I realized, what? It's not quantity, it's quality. It's the quality of people that are in my life. And that's who I really need to be surrounding myself with. And, even though I had a great childhood, I had some really great friends or people who I thought were my friends when I was growing up. Some of them happened to go by the wayside. I went a different direction. But I learned I wanted positive folks in my life. I wanted to make sure that the people who were in my life were quality people. And that's why I gravitated to you brothers, and I'm not just saying that just because we're here. I know I've said that a lot, and I value your friendship. I value my close-knit friends' friendship, because the one thing that I have learned is that friends are family that you pick. Friends are family that you pick. We're all blood ain't family. That's for doggone sure. But the friends that you have are the people that you pick, and you pick them with intent and with purpose. And again, I'm just thankful. So my close group circle, or my close circle, is extremely tight on purpose, because I want that positivity.
So your inner circle is definitely important. You think about the people you spend time with, those that influence you, and that evolves over time, right? Typically, your inner circle, for a lot of people, you're born into it. It's based on relationship. However, as you grow and develop, you realize that you start to evolve and expand that circle, and that a lot of time is based on trust and trust relationships that you develop. So it's important. I will say, me personally, my inner circle as a young person, as I look back now in retrospect, was really kind of non-existent. You know, uh, I think being an only child, being raised as an only child, and I, I I look back now and realize, I spent a lot of time with myself and my own thoughts, right, and establishing the mechanisms that I believe I needed uh, to ensure my safety, which provided me a sense of security. But it wasn't a lot of I can count on and depend on this person or that person, outside of my mother. And I recognized that my circle was really, really small. And we'll get into it, I'm sure, a lot more later on. But then you realize that whatever you're exposed to early on can really influence and have an impact on how you operate even as you grow and develop, right? So my inner circle has always been small. Uh, and of course, just like Ray, the military is where I really started developing a true circle. And of course, that was based on relationships that I had, and I picked those, right? And you pick those based on your values and what you desire. Some of them out of necessity. You know, if you're deployed in a foxhole and you got to depend on someone to have your back, and
Mhm.
you develop a level of trust in them. Because if you're ever in a foxhole with someone you can't trust, you know how that makes you feel as well. So,
Yeah.
you know, so, but yeah, but those are my initial thoughts regarding, you know, the inner circle, and really just being appreciative of how the military, really introduced me to have some intentional behaviors towards establishing, what and who I wanted to be part of my inner circle. So,
One of the things, man, that I enjoy so much about this podcast is the fact that obviously there's such diversity of thought amongst us all, right? And while we have a lot of the same morals and values, I think. Obviously, we have different thought processes on different things. And so, any topic that we touch on, it doesn't matter what topic it is, it's always going to be nuanced, if for no other reason, just based on all of our different thought processes. And I love how I try to, and I don't know, I guess it's always been in me to be that way. But then I think being a researcher is added to that. But I try to look at anytime we're going to have a topic. I try to look at it from multiple different angles. But it doesn't matter how many angles I look at it from. You all always bring something else that's more nuanced that I'm like, you know what? I didn't even think about that aspect of it. And I love that about this podcast. I love that about engaging with you all. And you said a couple of things, Rod, and one of them was had to do with picking your inner circle and your growth and all that. And I think that's so interesting because um, a thought I had as you were saying that I didn't necessarily have as I was prepping for this is that our inner circle morphs, right, based upon where we are in life, right? Everybody that comes with you can't go with you, right? So, you know, when I think about the fact that I've known all of you for so many years, and I think we've grown, um, you know, in a lot of ways at the same time. But that doesn't always happen, right? There are people who were part of my inner circle maybe when I was younger. People who were part of my inner circle 5 years ago, and I have outgrown them, right? And I don't mean that to sound like I'm better than anyone, because that's not what I'm trying to say. But it just happens, right? When you are growing exponentially, some people don't do that, they just stand pat. And I can't continue to keep you in my circle if you're not growing either. I'm not judging you. I'm not wishing you any ill will. But if that's where you're going to remain, you're going to have to remain there without me. Um, and so I agree with you, Ryan. I think that is so important to note too, in understanding that your inner circle does not have to remain the same, nor should it, quite frankly, right? You should always be, kind of, I hate to say pruning, right? Because, technically you don't really want to look at friendships and relationships that way, but in a lot of ways, that's kind of what it is, right? You have to, always look at it like, yo, okay, this person's doing this over here, and I that's not where I'm at anymore. So I can't, I can't, maybe associate in that same way with that person. I can't keep them in my inner circle because that's just not where I'm at anymore. So I think that's a very good point you made.
Good points beget good points, man, because I was just sitting there thinking, man, that's wow. They did come from some amazing directions. And then y'all were talking, I was like, oh man, I don't have nothing to add. But man, well, first off, the importance of an inner circle, it's vital. It's vital. I like how we put the caveat in there that I don't have a large inner circle. I think what we really have to be mindful of, especially, if you look at us, to include our brother Byron that's not here with us, we are very outgoing. We've had experiences. And so I think I think one of the things that really sets us apart from a lot of people you'll meet is that we actually have a real expanded connection of people that we actually know. Like if you look on social media, you'll see people and they got thousands of friends on Facebook and followers, but they don't actually know people. Like all of us can go into so many different rooms and really know people. And I'm willing to step out on a limb and say that all of us have these experiences where it's somebody that knows us, that in their mind and in their heart, they are really close to us. And we're just like, hey, okay, because we really do know that many people. But on the flip, when we talk about the importance of a small circle, humanity, like we're not built to have circles as big as people are parading around here acting like it's healthy. Like, oh, I got 20,000 people on. Well, you're not supposed to really personally know 20,000 people. It's not possible to make real connections. When you start getting, I know 20, 30, 40 people, that's tough. Like, shoes, we've all known each other for over 2 decades, and it's tough for us to stay in touch sometimes. So, but I do think it, and to piggyback on the point of pruning friends, like it's hard. I think you need to be careful when doing it, but I do think you got to. Some people ain't your friend. And then the more hurtful part is some people are really your people, but they just have not grown. And all of us, man, like I'll never forget, man, talking with Kev, man, years ago from Brick City. You know what I'm saying? Like you are not the same person that you were back then. And there's just some people, no matter how much we love them, they can't go where we're going. And, we've got to accept it. And that's why that inner circle is important, because an inner circle has to be tested. It has to be verified. They have to be qualified. You have to go through and it changes and it evolves and it develops. And just like some people fall out of ours, we fall out of some other folks,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
The game is the game, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have to be okay with that, right?
Because as you were talking about, Kev being from Brick City, I think about how much our experiences and our environment impacts us, right? So I'm sure Kev knows, it's like anyone knows, you grew up on the east side of San Antonio, you from some parts of Ohio, your environment dictates that you be a certain way, right? And that you have a certain circle, and sometimes I know even for me, it was just a matter of, okay, if you're gonna survive this thing, you got to make sure you have these connections in this hood, plain and
Yeah.
simple.
That point right
Yeah.
there.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
absolutely. Or else you might not make it out, right?
Yeah.
And so, but as you said though, but as you evolve, right? So you have different experiences. Maybe you move away. Now you're exposed to different things, different ideas, and you grow. And then you all know once you go back to where you came from, some of them people might be the same. You don't love them any less, but you
Right.
recognize that, yeah, I just can't move around here like that anymore.
Absolutely.
It's like going back to the neighborhood you grew up in and recognize that, while I walk these streets as a young lad, I can't stand on these corners now. Right?
Yeah.
It's different. And guess what? The young people here that are moving around, they don't remember me from this neighborhood.
Right.
All right. So the built-in
Right.
respect that you might have had, you may not have anymore. Because a lot of those folks are moved on now. So
Yeah.
all they know is, I haven't seen you around here for a while. What you doing? What's up? And I literally had that happen to me. I went back to my old neighborhood one time. And luckily, someone I grew up with was actually standing not far away. And he was like, whoa, 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 hey, this is Rock, And he grew up around here, right down there on Montgomery. But that dude didn't know me, you know.
Yeah.
He had his hands in his pocket. I'm like,
Yeah.
really? And I'm thinking to myself, just, not being in that mindset, I'm like, wow, this is what it's come to, huh? So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I know it's a divergent path, but it just reminds me that, as our experiences and exposure, have opened up other possibilities to us, it may or may not be the same for those that might have been part of our inner circle when we were younger as we've grown.
I guess I didn't even actually have my quote unquote opener because I just jumped right into piggybacking off of something that Rob was saying. But for me, I wanted to kind of start off by saying that, we all know that having meaningful relationships with friends, peers, family, or whatever also affects our mental health and our well-being. But how is our mental health and well-being being affected if we don't choose those relationships wisely, right? And Jim Rohn once said famously that you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with.
I'm with.
And
Mm-hmm.
then and and then there's another saying that and I think I've said, in fact, I know that I've said it on the show before, on the podcast before. But if you hang around nine broke people, you'll be the 10th. And I do believe those things are true. But conversely, I would also add that if you hang around nine successful people, you'll be the 10th. Just to put a positive spin on that. Right? And I think we commonly underestimate the importance of the company that we keep. We need people, coaches, mentors, teachers, family, trusted friends, or whatever in our lives who will push us and challenge us to be better, who see things in us that we might not see. Um, and it doesn't need to be a huge circle. Like each of you, all three of you have touched on the fact that your inner circle is tight, as it should be, right? I read somewhere that in a world where it's all about likes and shares and followers and snaps, that it's easy for us to fall into the quantity trap, right? This constant urge to chase numbers in all aspects of life, whether it be friends, followers, cars, watches, shoes, whatever the case is. And that's a pattern that focuses purely on the quantity instead of the quality. But we all know that quality is much more important in most instances than quantity. And your inner circle should be like your board of advisors, essentially, right? You should be very intentional about how and who you choose. So that was where I was planning to start before I jumped off.
And here's what's ironic, and I meant to mention this earlier as well. Gen Zers, 56% have reported feelings of loneliness versus 24% for baby boomers during their lifetime. right? And unfortunately, those feelings, that we feel during our formative years are often felt into adulthood for some of the reasons that we've talked about. But I thought when I read that number, I'm like, wow. So you would think that in now the information age and the age that, uh, that generation has been exposed to, uh, that gap wouldn't be so wide. But then I'm like, well, but the baby boomers, grew up in an era where you had to establish relationships because you didn't have, the internet and Instagram and Facebook and all. So, so you actually had to actually have, physical relationship. Then the numbers started making more sense. But I think that people should know that so that they can take steps to reverse that trend, recognizing that it's setting them up to. Then of course it does impact your mental health when you don't have those deep connections or relationships that you can lean on.
I was in Germany last year, and a guy that I used to be stationed with was kind of giving me a tour, and he was showing the different neighborhoods. And he showed me a section where they were building more American style houses. And he said in the older neighborhoods, they would build the houses so that they could house up to 4 generations in one house. And that the norm there was that you weren't compelled to move out until like not even after you got married, but like maybe after you had kids and the kids started to get larger and maybe you needed more space, then maybe it would be okay. But you were still welcome to stay there, and you'd have, one generation and then parents and then grandparents. You had all these generations in there together making that circle and that vibe. But yet they were building these houses for all of the Americans that were moving out there, and how the Americans have the idea that it's just one family, or you have a big house and have 2 people in it, which there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying, but I just think about the culture and how, when we set you were talking about the boomers, but I think about our communities. I think, when you were saying that, Rod, I thought about so many different things. Like, I think about how growing up, there was a alleyway in our back gate and my grandmother's back gate, and my uncle and aunt's back gate was on the other side. Like, we were all right here and we were close, and I was always in between here and there, and then other family, they lived walking distance away and we were all close. And now I'm thinking like, yo, if I'm gonna see some family, somebody gotta get on a plane to come see me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you talk about those circles, not just inner circles with friends but inner circles of people that are close to you, the way I was reading something and it said that human beings are tribal, and we originate our survival instincts for surviving a tribe because you had people to, as we always say in the military, to watch your 6. And we were raised like that. And so the problem with this separatist, a loner type culture that's being created, one thing is that people do get depressed because they're saying, hey, you need to go off and handle this alone. You need to have self-love. And they're like, self-love is such an incomplete concept because there has to be the love of others to give you a compass to let you know what self-love actually is. So we actually do this in community. And in community, when one person is down, the community sees that as a pain that the entire community is feeling. And so they ensure that the person in this community that is down gets everything they need to get back up. Whereas this new theory says, go off on your own and figure it out and then get it together and then come back. But when you go off on your own, you don't have any kind of idea what your normal is, or what health is mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because you are confining yourself away from, historically, the only people that you would confine away from general population or the circle would be people who were dangerous and a threat. But other than that, we were in community. And I think one that's hurting our mental health, because we've got this idea you got to do all these things alone, and this, well, we'll probably get into it later on this season, but this false idea of healing, as if we're not consistently being wounded as we journey through this thing called life. Like there's some place you can just go off and just get in your super suit and be completely healed. And the concept of healing outside of a loving community, which is so, but also when I think about it just on a macro level, it's a genius plan for a power dynamic. What is the best way to keep people from realizing their power? Is to make sure that they think they have to do things alone and to be separated, because the reality is that when we come together and we join, we're far more powerful than when we're separate and off to our own devices and thoughts and isolated and all of that. So yeah, that inner circle is beyond important. It's vital.
Ray, but John, when you were talking about that, what came to mind was, I think everyone has heard or stated at some point the importance of it taking a village to raise kids, right?
Absolutely.
So we believe that, but we don't necessarily
Or we don't
like
practice
that.
it.
Right, exactly. And so when you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, we did that back then.
Okay.
But today,
because I had community. I got community corporal punishment. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
Getting my butt beat all the way down the block before I got home.
Not anymore.
Mama, don't beat me. I'm tired. I done got beat 5 times before I got here.
Yeah.
You don't have that anymore, though. You better not touch my kid. That's what you have now. So
you better not even say anything to my kid.
Exactly.
You know. So anyway,
the only thing I can add to anything is, it's like, I know I used to have to ask myself, how do I narrow my my circle down? So that's some of the things that I did. I wanted to make sure I had put down. And one of the first things that I thought of was that I needed to find folks who were smarter than me. So not that I'm dumb, far from it. And I'm not saying that anyone who is trying to narrow their circle down has to find someone that is, super intelligent, but you have to surround yourself with those who are going to challenge you to be your best self. You guys challenge me. Kevin constantly challenges me. My daughter is constantly challenging me. I want people who are going to be honest with me, even if it hurts, because I'd rather have the harshest truth than the sweetest lie. So that's something I definitely want. I definitely want diversity. Yeah, he sure did. He sure did. But yeah, I want diversity, with age, race, education levels, gender, because everyone is going to have a differing opinion, and those differing opinions are paramount, especially when we're because we're all different entities with different thought processes, as Kevin has talked about earlier. I can't provide a woman's point of view as a man. I've been a man my entire life, but I know how to ask, because maybe getting a woman's point of view is going to bring something. Not maybe, it's going to bring something to me that I don't have, that I don't understand. And maybe I'm trying to talk to my daughter about something, or my daughters about something. I can't give them a woman's point of view. I can go to my wife and get one. I can go to some of the friends of my female friends and get their opinion as to what my daughters might be experiencing. So that was important for me. The second thing is, I believe you should cultivate the relationships with those who achieved your goals. You know, too many times, like I said, we've been conditioned to try and do things by ourselves, but which means we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and we don't have to. So if I'm going to work on my bachelor's degree because I don't have one, then I need to talk to someone who has one. If I'm going to if I want to go for my doctorate, well, I got two people in my immediate circle, in Kevin and Byron, where I can say, hey, look, I'm looking at working on my PhD. Can you provide any insight? Is there anything that I should be doing? I'm going to go to them because they've walked that walk. They've walked that path that I'm trying to go down. And too many times we try to reinvent the wheel because we're ashamed to ask for that help. The third thing, there's no room in my life for negative Nancy's. No room in it, because the one thing that they can do is they can consistently cause constant turmoil or drama. I don't need that in my life. They can't help me, but they can bring me down to their level of despair, and I don't want to be there with them. I let them stay where they are by themselves. Um, Nothing is better to me than accomplishing something hard after a friend or family member, such as Kevin, who has challenged everybody, they provide that encouragement by saying, you know what, you've got this, especially when you're going through something. When I got demoted back in 2006, Kevin was there to say, hey, you got this. Rod was there to say, hey, you got this. John was there to say, hey, you got this. Byron was there to say, hey, you got this. Just keep working hard. Get Stop the pity party. If you're having one, stop the pity party. Get back in there and make it happen. Do what needs to be done to get it done to get your strike back. If I didn't have that kind of encouragement, it could have been really easy for me to sit back and say, you know what, the heck with this. I'm gonna do my last few years and I'm gonna retire. But that's not what I wanted to do, and it's because I did have folks like you guys to challenge me. Um, because you guys were the ones that gave me that positive energy and that necessary push to move forward. The last thing I wrote everything down, so I didn't want to forget anything. Um, the last thing, if you can't play the game, watch it. What do you mean? Well, in this day, especially in this era of social media, you can always find an answer to your questions. Always. Um, I try to take advantage of others, your tips, your tricks, and the knowledge. Um, we haven't experienced the same things, but there's always similarities. So I really appreciated that. And what I would encourage people to do is to review, rethink, and reevaluate who your social media is and who your real life friends are, and stick with the ones who will actually help you to get to your desired destination and outcome. Because one thing, and I know Kevin may talk about this later, as lifelong learners, we are sure to benefit from listening and learning from those around us. So that's the four things I had that that helped me to narrow down who I wanted to keep in my doggone to keep in my circle, my inner circle.
No,
So
and I agree with that, Ray. I too think that your inner circle should be diverse, right? And I think oftentimes when people talk about diversity, they tend to, or they hear the word diversity, they tend to think race, right? And we all know that diversity goes much deeper than just that. So I'm not talking about any one aspect of diversity when I say your inner circle should be diverse. But if I were going to choose one, I would say certainly diversity of thought would be that one. And kind of in that sense, you should treat your inner circle the way you would treat leadership, right? And I don't want to be, as a leader, I didn't want to be and don't want to be surrounded by yes people, right? People who are always agreeing with you, they don't challenge you. And I've told numerous leaders before as well, you also don't want to be the smartest person in the room on every topic. And the same applies with your inner circle. If you're always the smartest person, you're limiting yourself, right? How can you glean from anyone if you're the smartest person amongst them on every topic? So you definitely, I agree with you 100%, Ray. You definitely want to have diversity in your inner circle. We've obviously talked about your inner circle being tight and being small. There's no need for quantity over quality. Quality certainly matters more. But if I was going to talk about a few additional traits of people that you would want to have in your inner circle, and traits that they should have, I think one of them would be people who give of themselves, or someone who gives of themselves, right? They're generous with their time and their ideas. and they're committed to reciprocity, right? You don't want you want it to be able to go both ways. You want them to be able to give time of themselves and also or not just simply wanting your time, but willing to give time of themselves as well, I should say. You also want people who kind of provide safety and candor. And what I mean by that is they you don't feel like they're going to judge you per se, right? You can be candor with them, you can share the good, the bad, and the ugly with them, and they're not going to judge you, right? They're going to be there for you. They're going to challenge you when necessary, tell you you're wrong when necessary, but you at least feel safe in being vulnerable with them, essentially. And again, there should be reciprocity with that. And then the other thing I would say is people who are going to hold you accountable. That's huge. You want people who are not just going to, because how are you going to be challenged if they're not holding you accountable? If they just you know um, sit there and listen to you and don't say anything back. You want somebody who's going to challenge you and hold you accountable. So I had some other things. I can't remember what they all were. I probably should have written them all down like Ray did, but I didn't. But those are some of the things that I would certainly recommend you have in the people that are in your inner circle.
Agreed. Agreed. I love that when y'all talked about not being the smartest person in the room. And to a point that Ray was making so well is that it's not so much that, you just like, yeah, well, you need to be in this room so I can get something from you. Like we're all bringing something to the room. But one thing that y'all have always told me is that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. And even as a senior leader, although I had the rank and the power and all that, I always knew that I was surrounded by people that brought so much to the table. And there were so many people that were good at something that made them stand out and they were better. And a lot of times being in a circle, it's important for us to, in this circle, just to think about it, and I've said it before, like I was the young cat, man, Ray would be taking me out to lunch, man, and he always would grab the tab, and I'd always look at that and I'd be like, man, my little broke. Like before I go to lunch, I got to check my my bank account to make sure there's enough money in there for me to go to lunch. And then I go hang out with Ray, and he grabbed the tab. It's 2 or 3 of us sitting there, and he just be like, I got it, don't worry about it, And I was looking at that, and I was just like, I want to get to a point where because we saw the ups and downs. And it's something that I always say, generosity isn't a condition of the wallet. Generosity is a condition of your heart. And, just always generous. Then I think about, I remember my Airman Leadership School graduation up in Boston, and Rod came out, as my supervisor. And man, he walked in sharp. I was like this was before the actual ceremony. Like this was him coming off the plane. He just got there to let me know he was there. He came in to the building, had on like the leather jacket with the sweater and the slacks. And I was like, my man just dressed like this getting off the plane. Like I'd be having on baggy jeans. Like you'd be lucky if I put on a collared shirt. And so, I'm watching and things like that. And then come to we got on our service dress with white shirts. He came in with the mess dress, and I'm like, see, I got to be on that. And I remember we'd be at conferences, and Kev would be like, "Yeah, I'm doing my Sudoku." I'm like, "What the Sudoku? What is that?" Like, and investments and all this, and I just think that's a beautiful thing because these lessons and these memories have shaped me as I've navigated, my career, my life, the ups, the downs, proposing, getting married, having a kid, going through divorce, going through major loss, going through trial. I always had a circle of people that had been there, had done that were willing to have these conversations with me, and all that, and then, my biggest goal as a military member was that I wanted to be able to walk into a room like Kevin Danley did in McGee Tyson and have all of the women say, "Oh my God, who is that?" That was what. So not only do you not want to be the smartest person, but you don't want to be the most handsome either. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I think, you know, sometimes I think us ugly friends, we don't get enough credit.
Yeah.
It's hard to be the unattractive friend.
Crazy. We got issues.
So good thing he has edit capability. Wow.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
So
That's good stuff, though.
yeah, so real quick, so my advice to anyone, seeking a life filled with deeper, more meaningful, and more valuable connections or relationships uh, would be to know what you desire in life, and really understand the characteristics of those people within your circle, what those characteristics need to be to best support, the goals that you've established for yourself. And it's okay to be around people uh, who exemplify what you want to become, right? Seeing how they move and how they operate, and then being able to pick their brain to understand their motivation for behaving in that manner, right? Like I said, our experiences and our environments and a lot of things help shape who we become. But again, understanding someone else's story, helps you to understand better how they've come from where they were to where they are now. We all have arrived at that place together. So, and I think it's important to do that, to constantly evolve. And, this whole idea of not ever wanting to be the smartest person in the room is real, and it's not to say you can't ever revisit that room because you have something
Right.
to offer,
Yeah.
but it is to say that you definitely need to be looking for another room yourself so that you can continue to grow and evolve, right? And I remember, making a decision to not frequent the Chiefs group meetings as much, but make sure that I went to the top 3 meetings, right? Because those are the folks that need to see the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
need to hear from the Chiefs. Need to understand, what's going on and how they fit, what they need to do to reach the goals that they might have set for themselves in their career as well. Chiefs walking around talking about stuff I really had not much interest in at all. But the top 3, those were folks that were still climbing. So you definitely wanted to be in there to try and provide any insight or influence that you could to help them along their journey. So I do think it's important to make sure that you recognize what it is that you need to get to where you want to go. And then the last point that I wanted to make was that, this is why the family you choose, ultimately, you probably, in a lot of ways, feel closer to uh, than the family you're born into, that share the same bloodline as you. Because unfortunately, a lot of times human beings, we take those gifts, the gift of family, and the uniqueness of it, we take those things for granted. But the family we choose, we hold in high regard, because we choose it for a specific reason. We found value in having that relationship. So we kind of guard it, and don't necessarily take that for granted. So that's the only point I wanted to make. But this whole idea of the inner circle, very, very important, very valuable. And I think people need to constantly be in the mind of, wanting to and needing to evolve.
Well, this is the end of episode 1 of season 3. And again, we are super excited to be back with you all, and can't wait for you all to see some of the things that we're planning for this season. So we really are excited about that. But all those things to come. But we want to take the time to thank you for joining us in this episode. As we wrap up this episode, I want to leave you with a quote from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, as we are recording this on his birthday. So, in speaking about economic injustice, he said, "True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It is not haphazard and superficial. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. A true revolution of values will soon look uneasily on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth and say, this is not just." Until next time, peace.